And I'm muted. Thank you. Again, I'm Brittany Elkins with the MMBC Continuum, and I have the wonderful opportunity to welcome you to your final workshop of today, which is titled Digital Marketing Strategies for Small Businesses. And I also have the pleasure of introducing your workshop speaker, Ms. Karen Mitchell. Karen has worked in the media over 10 years, specifically with a focus in digital advertising. She has worked across the spectrum of businesses, but most enjoys helping local owned businesses grow through smart, results-driven campaigns. Karen currently serves as Vice President of Digital Sales for iHeart Media and strives to share insights that will shape navigating strategic marketing in the digital space. Welcome, Karen, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Brittany, for the introduction. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to join with this particular forum, be a part of the EDF in sharing ideas, providing information, and it's always a pleasure. So thank you so much for the invitation.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So first, I'd like to say hello. As Brittany mentioned, my name is Karen Mitchell. I serve as the Regional Vice President of Sales for this area. And what I'd like to share with you today is information that is relevant to you as a small business owner or a person that's involved with the decision-making processes in marketing for a small business. As Brittany said, I work with businesses across the spectrum, everything from private sector to government, everything from a small mom and pop all the way up to major corporations that may even have a global presence. However, I don't think I will ever get as much satisfaction as I do from working with a local business that is a part of the community that we live in, that we work in, that we play in, and being that person that helps make their business impactful by smart marketing decisions and plans. So I'm going to take a second to share my screen and we can dive right into what this looks like for today. So again, today's topic is digital marketing strategies for small businesses. Let's dive right in. The CEO of iHeart said earlier this year, one thing is for sure, whatever marketing playbook you had before the crisis, it will need to be rewritten. I think we can all agree that we've lived through a very tumultuous time in the last 14 to 16 months. And not only has it affected what we know from a personal perspective, but it's affected what we know from a business perspective. So let's take a look at a couple things, okay? Times have changed, right? I want to share this picture that we have right now on your screens in front of you that is back from 2000. It is an image of Tiger Woods at the Masters on the course going in. I don't remember exactly which hole this was, but this is him going in for this particular shot. Now, this is in 2000. Look at this comparatively. Same scenario, same person, 18 years later. He's at the Masters again, still Tiger Woods, but notice the change in this picture, right? Look at this. What do you notice that's so significant? I'll tell you right off, because I know you guys can't talk back, right? What you notice is that everybody has a cell phone in their hands. What else has changed? Well, what's changed is that your current and potential clients expect you to communicate with them about the services that you offer. They expect you to utilize this technology that's very different for many of us than what we had 10, 15, 20 years ago. And they want it to be easy to do business with you. So where your current and potential clients are located and where they're spending their time has changed. And for that reason, the way you put your message in front of these potential individuals has to change as well. So I want to talk to you a little bit about something called LOAD. That is the local on-demand enterprise, right? So what does that mean? Well, what that means is that our society in its changed capacity does business in totally different ways. I bet with these brands that you see coming up on your screen now, you're familiar with, if not all of them, at least a few of them, right? Well, remember the time when there used to be a travel agency on almost every corner? Well, guess who totally changed that game? Expedia, right? Because they were servicing us in that on-demand environment that we live in. So what does that on-demand environment look like? Well, what it looks like is a very different shaped economy. So look at these stats that are on the screen in front of you. The largest transportation provider in the world does not own a single car. That would be Uber, by the way. The new largest lodging company in the world doesn't own a single hotel. That's Airbnb. And the nation's larger retailer, which by the way, is not Walmart anymore, doesn't own a single store. And that is Amazon. What that tells us is that this very different landscape that I keep referring to has completely changed the way, not only as consumers, we engage with these brands, get our services, get our goods, but the way they have to reach us as consumers is different for that reason as well. So consumers have changed, but have your strategies as business owners, and business decision makers changed? Have you updated your strategies? Have you adapted to the load that you are now competing in? Where is your business in this evolution? Well, I asked that question because we've identified that business as usual no longer exists. Millions of businesses just like yours have adapted to these new behaviors that we're talking about. And so the marketing decisions that you're making right now will not only significantly impact you for the back half of 2021, but also for coming into 2022. We know that we've seen changes across every aspect of our lives. I'd like to first point out the first couple on the right, even though I'm going a little backwards: life at home and life at work. Now, that has really become a blended space. You know, we really don't have the luxury anymore of having that very separated environment of home and work. For many people, that's become a very blurred line where they're working from home, they start in their home and they end in their home because their work days also spent there as well. But we've changed shopping habits. We've changed the fact that many of the children and even college students are learning from home. The way we play and the entertainment that we consume and engage with is very heavily based in digital. The way you go about getting health screenings or engaging from a well-being perspective is different. Think about this. It used to be when you were not well and you needed a doctor's appointment, you would call up your physician. You would hope to get an appointment in maybe 2 weeks, if you're lucky. If you have a very popular physician, it may be 6 months before you got an appointment. Well, how many of you have even had the possibility, if not already used, Telemed Services? Here we are now with this technology that allows us to download an app, enter in your information, tell a little bit about your symptoms. You're immediately using electronic media connected to a physician. And that physician can diagnose you, can share with you his concerns, can even write you a prescription, have it sent to the pharmacy, and you've never entered a doctor's office. That's on the health side. Think about it on the well-being side. Because we know that so many things shifted over the last year, we are just now starting to see health facilities and gyms open back up. Have you taken part in an online workout course? So many businesses learned how to shift to speak to what our current state of affairs were. I don't know about you, but I've broken out the yoga mat on my dining room floor so that I could take an online yoga class. Those are things we would have never done because before this last year, we would have thought we had to be face to face in order to make the connections and in order to make the successful business moves that we needed. We know now that's different. Travel and mobility is different. I use the example of travel agents being on every corner, 10, 15 years ago. Now, you can't hardly find one. You know why? Because we live in this on-demand environment and companies like Expedia bring it right to us, right? So that's changed very much, especially now that things are opening back up and people are starting to resume travel. We need it easy, we need it quick, and we need it accessible. And of course, communication and information has changed. There's been that shift in media consumption. And for that reason, we know that not only as the consumer ourselves, we've seen that change, but the people that you're servicing, the people you're putting your goods in front of, the people that you're putting your services in front of, their lives have changed as well. So what we know is that we've had a pandemic-induced shift. Let's talk a little bit about some of those behavioral changes that have come about because of it. So we had over 20% increase in the number of people working from home than pre-pandemic. We had about 250 million students switch to online learning in the last 14 months. And this is the one that I really love. In a matter of 8 weeks in the initial stages of the pandemic, businesses did what was equivalent to 10 years worth of e-commerce in just 8 weeks. Do you understand how powerful that is? Guys, if you're not taking advantage of a multi-platform marketing plan that really utilizes these digital assets, you're missing the boat. Not only does your business not have an opportunity to compete, but just as you're here as a small business, right? You want to make sure that the landscape is even for those big boxes as well as you as a local business. There's a lot of power in those numbers. So winning requires strategic solutions to these challenges that we've talked a little bit about today. How are we going to get there? We're going to utilize targeted media. We're going to go across multi-platforms to get our messaging out, and we're going to utilize measurable results in order to deliver, ensuring that every dollar counts. Strategic marketing plans drive results. But how do we do this? That becomes the question. Well, you gotta have a total marketing strategy. You're gonna do that through trust, reach, and targeted messaging. So let's talk a little bit about understanding the consumer landscape. We've talked about how lives and consumerisms have changed. Let's talk about that landscape a little bit. No matter what you're selling, whether it's a good or a service, there is a customer journey. There's a buying cycle. Now, those buying cycles are going to vary a good bit depending on what it is that you're offering your customers. But the important takeaway here is understanding that at any given point, people are constantly throughout that buying cycle at different stages, and they may go in and out of different phases of the buying cycle before they land at the place of converting to a customer, which then in turn, hopefully becomes an advocate for your business. So the important takeaways here is understanding that not only are people constantly going in and out of these different phases, but in addition to that, it takes you having your message in different platforms to reach these different people as they're in the different buying cycles of the customer journey. And you see that indicated there. What I'd like to encourage you to remember is that more than anything, it's not linear. It's a very cyclical behavior that is ongoing and that people are constantly moving in and out of. As they move in and out of it, you know, they are there to do business with you. You are there to put your message in front of them. And the way you go about putting that message in front of them is in a very data-based set of metrics, right? With that data-based set of metrics, you want to ensure that you have very clearly identified key performance indicators. That's very important. And those key performance indicators could be a number of different things. It really depends on your business. It is very possible to have the key performance indicators change over the course of the year for your business. Your business may be seasonal. What your key performance indicators or KPIs, as we refer to them in the industry, may be in Q1 and Q2, may be different from what they are in Q3 and Q4 of the year. Brand awareness may be something that you need to get out there for your business. You may have a need for recruitment. I can't tell you how many businesses I've talked to over the last few months that are just dying and struggling so with the need for recruitment. That might be a key performance indicator for you. You might need to drive traffic to your website. You may be looking to increase your e-commerce sales. You may be looking to make the phone ring more. The fact is that identifying what it is that you need to measure to ensure the success of your business is what's most important. Identifying those on the front end so that we can ensure that we've got the right tactics in place that can measure that, and that we're measuring the data that directly points to what it is you're looking to grow. So what do we know about Memphis? And let me say this, I know because we're fortunate enough to have a virtual environment for a second year in a row, that there may be people on this call that are not from Memphis, but I also know that we've got a lot of people that are local to the area. So I want to talk a little bit about what we know about Memphis. And I want to also point out that this is relevant because in the very least, you are doing business with Memphians on a day-to-day basis. Your business may expand beyond Memphis and outside of Memphis, particularly if you have an e-commerce site. However, it is very important to know that you understand your consumers in the Memphis area. So what do we know about those consumers? Well, let's take a little bit of a look at the landscape report. When we look at 2021 household data for the city of Memphis, we've got about 504,000 households that has an average income of right around $80,000. We have somewhat of an even divide between men and women, although we do skew just a little heavier on the female side at 53% as far as our population is concerned. We have a somewhat even spread across the educational completion rates for our population, with about 30% high school grads, just over 30% with some college, and then just under 30% with college undergrad or grad level status. And in addition to that, we also know that Memphians are a very self-driving market, I guess I'll say. So by that, I mean, when we're going to work, we're driving to work. So 88% of the time, we are driving ourselves to work. We're not really using public transportation. There's a little bit of carpooling going on, but it is very, very narrow in comparison to the amount of time that we're actually in our cars driving ourselves. In addition to that, the average travel time to work is 26 minutes. Well, I think it's important to know these things for a couple of reasons. Depending on what your business is, who you are, and what you have to know these different statistics that really help you not only speak to these individual groups, but also knowing how to reach them best, because there are different tactics out there that statistically do better different particular groups within the population. So next, we're going to look a little bit at media insights and trends and what they tell us about how we navigate this space. So I was saying earlier today to someone, you know, back in the day, if you will, if you really had it going on and you really planned on really taking advantage of your marketing dollars, you put them in television. And most ideally, if you put them in television, you wanted to do so in the primetime spot, right? You wanted to do so when everyone had gotten home from work and had the opportunity to have dinner and, you know, got those few minutes to relax, and they plopped on the couch with their feet up to watch their primetime spot. And that, as a business, is where you wanted your message to run, in that primetime commercial spot. Well, let's stop for a minute and identify the fact that broadcast TV has been declining steadily since 1985. In 1985, you're talking about a primetime rating of a 45.1 point, with a 63% decrease over time between 1985 and last year. So with that said, the conversation extends to OTT. You may ask, what is OTT? OTT is just a silly acronym. It stands for over the top, and it's still television consumption, but instead of it being television in the traditional way that we're used to, we're talking now about television streamed. We're talking about digital television. OTT has exploded, with more than 68% of the US using over-the-top video services. 63% of TV viewing time is now on streaming TV. And guess what? With 63% of TV time being in stream TV, people actually prefer ad-supported OTT. Why do you think that is? That is because the ad-supported TV is what keeps OTT free for many people. Now, of course, this excludes the things like Netflix of the world, Disney Plus of the world. Those are subscription-based, and for that reason, they don't have advertising in it. But as you notice on bullet number 3, 40% of people opt for a low subscription fee with fewer ads, and only 32% free with no ads, because it still allows them to get the content that they're looking for in that cord-cut environment. Connected TV ad spend, which, by the way, connected TV is just an interchangeable term for OTT, has grown by more than 40% in the last 3 years and is expected to top $13 billion by the end of 2021. Now, I want to pause there and bring up a point. When we first started 2021, eMarketer forecasted that OTT spend would have been at $11 billion for 2021. This space has grown so tremendously that here we are just barely on the back half of 21, now that we're in July, and the industry has had to go in, reforecast that number, and now we're expected to top $13 billion just this year and reach $17 billion in 2022. Guys, that is a tremendous amount of ad spend in the connected TV space. And when we look at advertisers, 60% of advertisers plan to shift more dollars to OTT in 2021, saying that it is their highest priority channel. So again, shifting back to Memphis specifically, because statistics are only as good as what actually is relevant to you and to your market, right? So when we look at Memphis specifically, we know that Memphis has a really high OTT consumption rate. About 50% of Memphians, which is about 685,000 people, are OTT users or cord cutters, as we like to refer to them. Of that 50%, you got 36% that own a streaming device, and almost 40%, which is over almost a 500,000 people, or over 500,000 people rather, that do not subscribe to traditional television service in any capacity. They are completely cord cutters. The reason that this is relevant is because when you're thinking about how to reach your audience, you can't do so in a very traditional way. You have to, again, going back to the point I made earlier, ensure that they are being reached in a multi-platform way, ensure that your message is being put in front of people where they are. And we know that about 50% of adults in this market in particular are in the OTT stream space consuming content. So this was another one that I really liked. We've talked about the fact that traditional TV is not really traditional anymore. We're watching it in a more digital format. But guess what outshines TV? Mobile. Look at that stat. 5 hours a day the average American is spending on their phone. Guys, we only sleep for 8 hours, and that's on a good day, right? But we're looking at about 3.5 hours of TV a day. What does that tell you? That tells you that we're connected to this device. We've always got it right here. 5 hours a day is what we have. So let's talk about that a little bit. Nearly half of consumers spend those 5 hours on their mobile phone on a daily basis. Now, I don't know if this is really brag-worthy, but 78% of women and 64% of men spend more time on their phone than with their partner. Mobile commerce is expected to grow 12.2% in 2021. That's compared to a 9.7% e-commerce sales from the previous year. As of Q1 earlier this year, 69% of traffic share and 57% of order share was driven by mobile devices. Guys, that's almost like everybody's total sales started from a mobile device. And to those who make an in-store visit after seeing a mobile ad, spend an average of 27% more than those who never saw the ad. Why do you think that is? It gave them the opportunity to look at it, to think about it, to research it. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier about people going in and out of that customer journey over a course of time. It's a lot of time engaged with a mobile device. But I like to also say, when people are on their mobile devices for up to 5 hours a day, they're not just checking email, right? They're also, they've evolved in the way they're consuming content. We've talked about the fact that people are streaming. Let's talk about what else they're doing on these mobile devices, all right? They're listening to audio. There was a 26% increase in podcast consumption in the last year, a 44% increase in in-home audio listening, and a 43% increase in smart speaker usage. Huge, huge. So let's look at this for a second. We're on our phones for over 5 hours a day, right? A good chunk of that we're consuming podcasts. The average podcast listener is listening to over 6 hours a week of podcast content. And in addition to that, we are increasing the way we're listening to in-home audio through the use of smart speakers, connected TVs, and devices. So there's some innovations that's driving these surges in audio engagement. And let's talk about what those look like. Well, first of all, Bluetooth earphones. I always say that we're all walking around looking like we're CIA agents these days. 300 million total sold globally, okay? We're raising audio first generations of children right now. Over 50% of American homes have smart speakers in them. And as I mentioned on the last slide, podcast is the fastest growing medium across all the different forms of media, with over half the population saying that they listen to a weekly podcast. And guess what's coming next? Social audio. You ever heard of Clubhouse? Ever heard of that? Clubhouse is the invite-only audio chat app, and it was recently valued at $4 billion. Now, guys, That's not too shabby for something that just popped up in the recent year. So again, as audio continues to develop, all it's doing is becoming more innovative, creating more opportunities for people to stay connected. But in doing so, it is also giving you more opportunities to connect with the very people that are your consumers. So we've talked about them being on connected TV. We've talked about them being on their mobile devices. I've laughed about them not only being on their mobile devices just to check email, but also listening to audio and podcasts. Guess where else they are? As we most know, social media. 72% of US adults use at least one social media site. Okay, so I like to make this analogy. It used to be once upon a time that there were certain images that conjure up an immediate association of a brand. The golden arches, McDonald's. The red and white bullseye, Target, right? The little girl with the red pigtails and the blue and white striped top, Wendy's. We have these images that are branded in our heads that have taken place over decades of time to really familiarize ourselves with them. Well, guess what? All of those images you see on the bottom have become just as commonplace for most of us as some of those images that's taken decades to build that sort of brand awareness. So if you look across the bottom of the screen, you've got TikTok, Snapchat, Reddit, Pinterest, Facebook, YouTube. Guys, 72%, that is almost 3/4 of the US adult population that are on at least one of those, with many people being on more than one. So when they're on these social media sites, yes, they're there to check in with friends. Yes, they're there to see how great somebody's life is going or brag about how great their life is going. But while they're on there, 57% of US internet users follow brands on social media. 80% of those people discover products that they're interested in, and 90% of people buy from brands that they follow on social media. So again, I would say that's a highly relevant space and a space that you really want to make sure that you have the opportunity to reach your customers within, understanding that about 3/4 of the population is on it. So in conclusion, I'd like to share a couple of thoughts, right? We've talked about the fact that it's important to be multi-platform, to build the trust, to not only put all your eggs in one basket, as I like to say, but really diversify your media plan. We know that we are experiencing a largely diverse and fragmented media space. So where is your place in that space? Embrace your total marketing strategy concept because it's critical to your business's success. Be willing to adapt to that next normal consumer that we talked about. That's our, I hate to even say, new normal. It's a different path to purchase, and it may not look the way it did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and definitely not, 16 months ago. Be willing to explore the possibilities of your business. And lastly, I say to people all the time, stay curious. Stay curious. That is the number one thing that you can do for yourself. It will help you not only embrace the evolution, it will help you understand what's going on out there, modify your business plans to fit the needs of the marketplace, and it will keep you being the successful business owner that you know yourself to be, that we know you to be, and continue driving traffic to your site or your storefront. So I'd like to take this moment to thank you. What you see in front of you is the iHeart Digital Solutions website, iHeartDigital.solutions.com. I invite you to visit the site to take a look at some of the tactics that we've talked about. If you have additional questions, a lot of information is there. Again, my name is Karen Mitchell. I hope you found this beneficial and helpful. I can stop for a second to see if there might have been any questions on the chat. I don't think so. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and notice if I see any chat that I could answer. Yes, it's actually just encouraging everyone to share any questions that you may have. And I would like to ask that verbally as well, in case anybody wants to raise their hand or share comments. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I hope that everyone found it beneficial. Well, guys, if there is nothing else, thank you so very much for attending. It was a pleasure to be here with you today. And I hope that you enjoy the other forums and workshops that are offered this afternoon.
Thank you, Karen. It's been amazing having you today. And I want to remind everyone that we're going to have a breakout room tomorrow where we can continue this conversation. So I know you weren't able to talk one-on-one with Karen from iHeart today because we're in this webinar setup, but tomorrow we'll actually be in a meeting and you'll be able to ask whatever questions you want and also connect with your fellow attendees. So if you want to learn more about digital marketing, especially with iHeart Media, join us tomorrow again, either 2 or 3 o'clock in the breakout rooms. Let us know if you have any questions. We have a few more minutes. If not, we'll head over to the auditorium and we'll wrap up the day. Thank you again. Have a great one.